Hello, and welcome to coverage of the Cycorp Swiss Open for the custom standard format. I'm Caillou, and today we're going to be watching the round 1 match between Philippe, who's on 5-color upload control, and Tyrant, who's on blue-red crossing the frog. So Tyrant is going to immediately snap mull that first hand, had 5 lands, and nothing else basically. This hand is a lot better. Magefire is gas if you have some way to bin it. And then Aspiring Rascals is pretty much like what the deck is named for, along with Crossing the Fog, which is another cantrip. So 2 lands here. Rhinidophobia gives Simon a turn 1 play, and then can hope to hit some more interaction or like cantrips in order to flip Aspiring Rascals. On Philippe's end, Philippe mults for 6 as well. Hits 5-lander, but does have Ancestral Research to dig deep. Zulav writes to tutor. I think Philippe is pretty comfortable keeping this hand. And yeah, Philippe's going to keep at 6. So Simon starting off, turn 1, Island, Rhinidophobia, pass. So Rhinidophobia essentially creates a frog token and prevents Philippe from blocking any frog Simon controls, which can become surprisingly relevant with Aspiring Rascals, which flips into a frog, I believe. Meanwhile, Philippe playing an island of his own, but instead playing Ancestral Research. This lets him upload the top 3 cards of his library. It's a homage to the famous card Ancestral Recall. Uploading is a mechanic where essentially any cards that are uploaded are in exile. You can pay 2 mana at sorcery speed to put that card into your hand. So Philippe hits another Ancestral Research, a Mushroom Bog, and Corporate Ascension. So Corporate Ascension is one of the win cons of this deck. It basically allows you to upload a card at the start of your upkeep, and whenever you download a card, you basically put a counter on it, and when you have 10 counters on it, you win. Then on Simon's turn, gonna main 1, just attack with the frog, and then probably main 2, just tap out for Aspiring Rascals. Yep. Still doesn't quite have enough to be able to flip Aspiring Rascals next turn. But Philippe's deck is slow. It is notably like a control deck. You see Final Verdict, which is a wipe. You see like Seal of Judgment as an O-ring. It has controlling elements, but it's also much grindier than a traditional control deck. Runs like a lot of enchantments and has a combo finish to close out the game, which involves using Corporate Ascension or another card called Doxing, which does 2 damage to any target whenever you download a card, along with Deep Net, which is an enchantment for 3 black mana. It allows you to pay 2 life instead of 2 mana to be able to download a card, and then you can play a black mana to upload a card. So you basically just upload a bunch and then go ham. Meanwhile, while I was talking, Simon casts an Opt into a Crossing the Fog. So this is good here because this is 2 non-creature spells. So if any of the 3 cards that Simon has with Crossing the Fog are a land, main 2, Simon can play a land, shock Philippe to the face, and then flip Aspiring Rascals. Because Aspiring Rascals flips into a 5/4 that can get flying and also has natural tax effect, which on spells that target it. It's essentially a huge bomb. So that's a land. Hits a mountain and another Opt. So I think if you're Simon here, you probably just attack with Aspiring Rascals and the frog, grab Opt plus a mountain maybe, and then shock Philippe to be able to flip the Aspiring Rascals. And yeah, if Simon gets to flip this Aspiring Rascals, I feel like it'll be a really short game right here. Because the Seal of Judgment would have been a good answer for Aspiring Rascals pre-flip, but then post-flip it'll take 6 mana, which Philippe is not going to hit. Final Verdict does come online in another 2 turns, but by then Philippe will be dead to essentially 6 damage per turn. And up here we go. Plays the mountain, flips into Marshback Knights. So yeah, Marshback Knights, along with the frog, deals 6 damage per turn. Simon has a shock in hand. That means in 2 turns, Philippe is dead. Philippe does have an Oracle's Ploy, could play a land, Oracle's ploy. Oh, it's 3 more. I thought it was 2 more. If it's 3 more, then Philippe can't even like play a land this turn, and then Oracle's ploy the Marshback Knights to like slow it down. Yeah, it just kind of has to hope that he can survive until he can cast the final verdict. Could cast Oracle's ploy on the frog, but I don't think that's worth it. I think that would be a big waste of the Oracle's ploy. Yeah, and this is where like I think Simon's deck really basically like triumphs over other traditional aggro decks in this kind of control matchup, is that its sheer explosiveness and card flow, like its ability to just like run so many cantrips is just insane. And having like big bombs that are difficult for control to deal with is definitely a plus. So Philippe is going to play Corsating Cityscape, uploading Final Verdict. I think uploading Final Verdict was probably a mistake. Not because you can't just, you can get it back next turn, but I think telling Simon that you have an answer to his Marshback Knights will probably make Simon play differently. Anyways, off that Corsating Cityscape, playing Azul of Rights, which basically allows you to search your library for an enchantment and then cast it. And the enchantment that Philippe chooses is Into the Lion's Den, which essentially grabs a card from your opponent's hand. I think if you're Philippe, you probably, I don't know, you probably take the shock. Philippe is taking the opt. I think if you're Philippe, you should probably take the shock because that makes the clock in you a 3-turn clock rather than a 2-turn clock. So I think grabbing opt there was definitely a mistake. Ooh, and Simon hits a Spellmaw Crocodile. Yeah, if you're Simon, you just windmill slam the Spellmaw Crocodile. The reason for that being, it's just as good as shock, and it draws you a card right here. And it allows you to bin Magefire Phoenix to potentially bring it back later. So yeah, Philippe taking 8 damage there, is dead next turn and does not have the mana to be able to cast Final Verdict next turn. Meanwhile, Simon plays Horizon of Origins, revealing an island in the form of Spindling Nimbus, leaving it untapped rather than tapping it. This allows Simon to have a shock up. I don't think it matters here, because I don't think Philippe has a way to answer any of this. Short Circuit could work. Even if Philippe Oracle's ploy even if Philippe uses Oracle's ploy on the Marshback Knights, it won't be enough. So he's going to Seal of Judgment on the Marshback Knights. Can't do that because it costs. Or is it because? Ooh, interesting. It's an enters the battlefield trigger, so technically, it doesn't count as a spell that targets Marshback Knights. That's definitely like a weird interaction, because it's an ETB trigger, and it gives Philippe 3 more life. It does mean that Philippe doesn't have access to the wipe next turn because still needs to download it. Another reason why I think Philippe should have just left Final Verdict in his hand. Meanwhile, Simon is just like, I'm going to continue taking down your life, dude. Swings out for 3 with Spellmaw Crocodile and the Frog. Draws into a Gift of the Phoenix. Ooh, and another Magefire Phoenix. So if you're Simon, you just discard this other Magefire Phoenix to Spellmaw Crocodile, and then play Shock plus Opt, bring back 2 Magefire Phoenixes. And this way, Philippe just has no response. Oh god. And if you play the Aspiring Rascals first too, yeah, this is dicey. This is so dicey because Simon, it gets Aspiring Rascals and 2 Magefire Phoenixes, at which point Philippe's only out is to like naturally draw, can't even naturally draw into a Final Verdict, because Final Verdict requires 2 white, and Philippe only has 1 white. So this game is just definitively over in dominating fashion. And these kind of like combo turns are why like crossing the Frog is so insane, because like you see like Simon started that turn with just a Spellmaw Crocodile and a Frog in play, and then by the end of it got 3 gigantic bodies. And it hits, or Philippe hits an Oracle's ploy, but Yeah, that's it. So Simon takes game one in convincing fashion. Let's cut over to the sideboards and see how each player is going to sideboard for game two. So in Simon's end has Spell Pierce. I think Spell Pierce and Negate are pretty good here. Both to like stave off like potentially problematic removal. Also, Spell Pierce is good. Like sometimes you can counter your own cantrip in order to reach the 3 non-creature spell threshold for bringing back Matriarch Phoenix from the grave, or like flipping into a Marshback Knight, etc. I think Negate is like fine, especially against like a slower deck. If it's a fast control, like a control deck with fast answers that you're worried about, I think you probably don't bring in Negate, but you Spell Pierce early to keep them off of like their early answers, and then Negate when they try to start playing like Doxing or something. So yeah, I think probably 3 Spell Pierce, 2 Negate in. Out for maybe some of the shocks. Not quite sure what would come out there. Meanwhile, on Philippe's end, I don't think you would Pithing Needle just to turn off Spellmark Crocodile, but Philippe might decide to. I don't think so, though. If you're Philippe, I think you'll definitely bring in 1 more Final Verdict, 2 more hired hits, 4 Wander the Unknown. You want as much cheap, quick, early game interaction as you can. Bounties in matchups where you need a fast clock, this isn't one of them. Negate, countering their non-creature spells really does nothing. Sonic Scream, they don't have any good like enchantments or artifacts. And Duress, you want to be grabbing their creatures, not their non-creature spells. So it's probably about it. I think coming out for some of like the slower options, like I think you could probably take out like Seal is particularly good versus a non-flipped frog. Sorry, not a non-flipped. Seal is particularly good versus a flipped frog, so I might keep that in. But I think like Into the Lion's Den is probably coming out in some number, redistricting. Oracle's Ploy is good against like non-flip stuff, but it's not. I think because it's sorcery speed, it's probably coming out in favor of these hired hits. So those are my predictions for sideboarding for Philippe. Let's get into game 2 and see what they're doing. So here we are getting into game 2. Simon has a 5-lander with Gift of the Phoenix and Spellmaw. I think this is a very keepable hand, but Simon disagrees. Gonna mull into another 5-lander, this time with Rascals and Spell Pierce. I guess and is deciding to keep this. Spell Pierce puts Philippe off early interaction, but Rascals alone is kind of sus. Philippe has an opening hand of Redistricting for ramp, and then Vibrant Rapture and Oracle's Ploy's interaction. Rapture being really good because it's another thing that bypasses Frog's spells that target this creature cost 3 more ability. Oracle's Ploy also kills Unflipped Frog here if Simon decides to play it turn 2. Meanwhile, Simon top deck into another land is definitely looking dicey in that regard. And having the fetch here is really good because Philippe has a perfect curve of turn 1 fetch, turn 2 redistricting, and then use redistricting as ramp. Ooh, but Simon is going to Spell Pierce the redistricting. I don't know if I agree with that, honestly. Also, you want to slow down Philippe's deck. But I think that there are much more high impact targets in Philippe's deck for that Spell Pierce. Meanwhile, a really good hit off the top of Simon's library, getting a Dour Vagrant, which basically allows Simon to journey when it enters the battlefield. Hits another land off the journey. We'll probably want to see more gas to be able to flip this Aspiring Rascals. But having what is the equivalent of like 2 bodies is also good. Meanwhile, Philippe is just going hard on this redistricting, and is going to crack it. Bring back Umber Steps probably twice. Yeah, so it's going to crack the fetch twice. Let's see what he grabs with it. Forlorn Ruin and Eerie Bayou. I think that this was a mistake. I think that Philippe should have gotten at least one other white land in case Philippe top decks into a final verdict. The thought might be, well, Philippe wasn't thinking of that because he already has 2 wipes, and I think that's true. But you also want to make sure you can cast all of your cards. I guess Philippe has Corsating Cityscape plus Hidden Harbor, but if somehow Simon manages to get a Phoenix back this turn, I guess Vibrant Raptor on 4 still works, so it technically doesn't matter, but I think it's just better to have access to all of your cards. Meanwhile, Simon plays the Spying Rascals. It does die to Vibrant Raptor on X equals 1, though, and then I think Philippe can kind of just like go off to the races after that. So Philippe plays Corsating Cityscape, uploading Shadowed Pillar as part of its cost. And then tapping 3, Vibrant Raptor X equals 1, Vibrant Raptor X equals 1. This kills both the Spying Rascals and Dour Vagrant, and nets Philippe 2 Petals, which I think Philippe's deck can get very mana hungry if it hits like an Ancestral Research or something that allows Philippe to upload a lot of cards. So getting Petals is just good. I think this definitely sucks for Simon, but next turn can Hollow Dour Vagrant. Hollow is an activated ability where you discard a card and then pay the cost of the creature to create a token of it. And Simon has plenty of land sitting in his hand that I think he would rather be a creature. So, and yeah, hitting a 4th land. Yeah, Simon is definitely just going to Windmill Slam, Hollow that Dour Vagrant. Yep. Discarding the Mana Confluence. Don't want to ding your life, especially when you have like all of your fixing lands anyways. So let's see what Simon hits off the Journey. And another land. God, Simon's just getting so flooded. I think Simon's on like a 22 land deck. This might literally be half of the lands in Simon's deck. Not casting the Opt, I think hoping to save it for like an explosive turn. But I still feel like at this point, it's like you're in a worrying enough place where I think you need to like figure it out. And I think Philippe is probably regretting uploading Shadowed Pillar back into his hand last turn, because if he hadn't done that, he would have been able to play this Doxing and then immediately downloaded Shadowed Pillar to kill the Dour Vagrant Hollow token. Yeah, Philippe himself saying, now I regret downloading that land. Yeah, especially because Philippe already had 5 lands plus a Hidden Harbor in hand. I don't think there was any play that would have required Philippe to have the Shadowed Pillar. But Philippe still has Oracle's Ploy for the Dour Vagrant token, killing it. Simon does get a Scry, though, and given how flooded Simon has been, this could let Simon hit something big. Instead, puts a Crossing the Fog to the bottom of his library. It's a cantrip that relies on you being able to hit your opponent in the face, which, when you don't have any creatures on board, isn't really very good. Top deck's a Magefire Phoenix. I don't think I've ever seen Simon hard cast a Magefire Phoenix. But next turn totally could. Meanwhile, Simon's going to cast Opt main. Interesting. And I guess hoping to find something to... Oh, that's a gift to the Phoenix. So now I guess the question becomes, do you bin Magefire Phoenix to a gift to the Phoenix, or do you bin a land? And then hope to he's going to bin Magefire Phoenix. I don't know how much I agree with this, because I feel like it's safer to, especially when, I guess Simon played Opt earlier. Actually, yeah, Simon played Opt into the gift to the Phoenix, so he knows he's going to be able to recur it anyways, as long as he hits a cantrip. And Crossing the Fog makes sense. Magefire Phoenix comes back, hits Shock, Crossing the Fog, and another Magefire Phoenix. Yeah, that's just a string of good cards. So important to note is that means Simon could potentially recur another Magefire Phoenix next turn. If you're Philippe, I think you just go Vibrant Raptor X equals 4 here, and use it as a single kill spell. Because Magefire Phoenix is incredibly dangerous, and you do not want to mess with it. And yep, casting the Vibrant Raptor, X equals 4. Magefire dies. The problem is, Magefire being engraved means that it can be recurred. If Simon hits like a nut of more, that's a Spell Pierce. That means Simon can gift the Phoenix, discard a land, and then if Simon hits at least one other cantrip, can play the cantrip and then Spell Pierce his own cantrip in order to bring back Magefire Phoenix. Yep, discards the Mountain. Hits Horizon of Origins and Negate. Oh, this is a weird line. So can't do anything here because both of these require a non-creature spell as a target, and Simon doesn't have one he can cast right now. So, and next turn, if he draws into a cantrip, he will be able to play the cantrip and then double counter it to bring back his Magefire Phoenix. Meanwhile, Philippe is kind of peaked here, keeps drawing lands, getting super flooded, doesn't have any way to upload cards to turn on this doxing. That's an opt. So if you're Simon here, do you let the opt resolve or do you double counter it to bring back your Phoenix? Is the question I have. Okay, so Simon is going to hold priority, Spell Pierce his own opt. Oh, but then he can counter his, and then he can negate his own Spell Pierce, so that he still gets the opt, but then the Phoenix comes back. Oh, no, wait. Oh, I guess decides to double counter the opt. That still works. Magefire Phoenix comes back, and Philippe doesn't have an answer in hand to it right now. That's so insane. That's so insane. And yeah, Philippe asking, wouldn't it make more sense to negate the Spell Pierce? It would, because then Simon would get to have the opt. But yeah, still Magefire Phoenix comes back. So apparently it was a misclick that Simon negated the opt instead of the Spell Pierce. So Philippe is letting him resolve the opt. And Simon draws into a Spellmaw Crocodile. Definitely a problem for Philippe because next turn Simon plays Spellmaw. If Philippe doesn't have Philippe won't have an answer to it because Philippe will draw into Wander the Unknown, and I think will snap Wander the Unknown Magefire, if anything. And if Philippe is drawing into this many lines, is super unlucky considering how much he thinned his deck with these fetches. Into the Lion's Den. It's the only thing that Philippe can play right now, and is just going to snap play it, hitting Spellmaw Crocodile. Simon will still swing out for 4 next turn with Magefire Phoenix, but not letting Simon have access to the Spellmaw is super huge because that's one less journeyed card Simon can get. It means that Simon doesn't have a way to bin the Magefire Phoenix to the other Magefire Phoenix to bring it back, and just like lots of little stuff like that. And Simon hits another land. If you're Simon, you probably attack. Do you grab another Crossing the Fog? Or Shock? I think you grab Crossing the Fog. Or maybe, no, yeah, actually, never mind. Magefire Phoenix, because Simon has the land to be able to hard cast Magefire Phoenix. Or do you even cast it right now? I guess it's not going to cast it, just in case Philippe top decks a wipe. Because a wipe would allow Philippe to take out 2 of the Phoenixes and would put Simon in a bad position. Instead, Philippe top decks a Seal of Judgment. So it's going to go back up to 17 and grab the Magefire Phoenix. So definitely raw. Like it was definitely like a game of like which is worse to get blown out by. It has double Magefire, draws into like the 3rd Magefire Phoenix. I think if you're Simon, you just hard cast one of the Magefire Phoenixes here. Yup. And my god, I don't think I've ever seen this happen in a Crossing the Frog game. And then next turn, just attacks with it, grabs the Crossing the Fog, and then you hit more. Philippe has a Short Circuit here. Yeah, so I think you Short Circuit the Magefire Phoenix, and then you can upload whatever gets, or you can download whatever gets uploaded off of Short Circuit, and then doxing will kill the Magefire Phoenix. And Coruscating Cityscape is really good because it gives Philippe access to another doxing trigger by uploading the swamp when Philippe plays it. So yeah, Philippe is going to download the Coruscating Cityscape and then shoot Magefire Phoenix with the doxing. Then plays Coruscating Cityscape, uploading a swamp. Definitely a bad situation because and Simon hits another land. So yeah, I guess here we go again. He's just going to play another hardcast, another Magefire Phoenix. And now it's on Philippe to top deck another Short Circuit. But hits a land. Both players are getting so flooded. So Philippe just has to pass. And now Simon gets to untap and grab Crossing the Fog. And Simon hits another land. Is this literally every land in Simon's deck? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 7, 9, 10, 11. It's not. It's about half, but it's still really dumb. But yeah, so Simon is going to swing in with the Magefire Phoenix, grabs the Crossing the Fog. Let's see what he hits off of it. Doesn't cast it. I guess the thought is if the Magefire Phoenix doesn't survive, you don't want to lock something high impact under the journey. But Philippe top decks an Umbrous Depths. Philippe is hitting so many lands. And no. Oh no. And Simon has a Make Way to protect the Magefire Phoenix. So even if Philippe finds a way to kill it, unless it's a wipe, then it won't matter. So hits another land and or 2 more lands and a Master of Ancient Texts. So if you're Simon, do you grab the Master of Ancient Texts or do you? I think you grab the Shock, right? I wonder. Or I think maybe you grab the Master of Ancient. No, because you have Make Way to protect Magefire Phoenix. And so the only thing that can kill it is a wipe. But it's gonna make is gonna focused Make Way the Magefire Phoenix now. And that turns it up to 8 damage. So that puts Philippe dead to. I was gonna shock Philippe. Why? Why is Simon shocking Philippe now? Oh, that's a third. Oh, because that's the third non-creature spell for Magefire Phoenix to bring back the other one from Simon's grave. Oh, wow, that's one hell of a play. And Philippe hits another land. Philippe got so flooded. Okay, that's super unfortunate, but good games to both players. But Simon on Crossing the Frog takes a 2-0 over Philippe on 5-color upload control. Those are some really cool lines from Simon's side of the table. It's really unfortunate we didn't get to see Philippe have the same chance to really play the game. Hopefully in later rounds we get to see Philippe's deck do more of what it does best and deep net plus doxing some people. But yeah, until next time, this is Caillou signing off.